As Uganda joins the rest of the world to celebrate World Food Day, here at UG Files 256, we look at the would-be initiatives taken by government and other stakeholders to improve the quality and quantities of food production right from the farm gates. The agricultural sector, being Uganda's backbone, employs over 80% of the country's workforce. Uganda basically grows organic foods which are naturally supported by tropical rains and black fertile humus across the country. You can never miss the volcanic soils which favor agriculture along Mount Elgon in the east, as well as Mount Mugahinga, Mount Sabinyo and Mount Muhabura in the southwestern Uganda, which will give you the best organic taste of Uganda's agricultural products. With the prevailing peace, the best policies to support agriculture and agribusiness facilities, and all the favorable conditions that permit bumper harvests, Uganda has the potential to feed her natives and the rest of Africa and export the surplus to the international markets. Now that we can produce more than enough to feed our people, the COVID-19 pandemic exposed the Pearl of Africa when we were caught off guard with the empty granaries, which resulted in soliciting for funds and food to feed the city dwellers. Food is a must-have item in every home. Food security must be emphasized if the country has to overcome famine, diseases, and domestic wars associated to poverty. At the 2000 Millennium Development Goals Conference held at the UN headquarters in New York, state representatives pledged to eradicate extreme hunger and poverty. Supporting and financing commercialized agriculture was one of the avenues to improve household incomes and reduce the biting poverty amongst the farming communities. 2 decades down the road, the Ugandan rural farmer still grapples with the rudimentary farming methods which still result into a hand-to-mouth phenomenon. In Uganda, most farmers engage in low-productive agriculture just to have a meal for a day instead of improving the economies of their households. Hunger, poverty, and malnourished children are still realized across the country, despite all government initiatives to gather scientific mechanisms and resources to fight the biting poverty and improve the household's income. Lack of agrobiological diversity, food loss, and waste, as well as lack of security for food. Chain workers are still a big challenge, leading to imbalances in the food supply chain, especially where smallhold farmers determine the day's catch. Much as this year's theme rotates around growing, nourishing, and sustaining together, a lot more still awaits the stakeholders and the government of Uganda to make farmers change from subsistence farming to market-oriented agricultural systems across all value chains. In this episode, let us focus on rice, a cereal crop grown to improve household incomes in Uganda. This is a popularly consumed cereal. It is the third world's highly produced agricultural commodity after sugar canes and maize. Rice, or omuchere, as locally known here in Uganda, can be locally prepared for a meal and even consumed as porridge once processed into powder. Up and lowland rice varieties are commonly grown by small and large-scale farmers in the west and eastern parts of Uganda, where high moisture content is experienced throughout the 2 seasons. This wetland is known as Mpologoma, found in eastern Uganda. It hosts Mpologoma River, as we shall see in one of our next features. The swamp is so famous for rice growing, a common crop that provides food and financial support to the locals of Namutumba and the surrounding districts before businessmen trade it to Kampala and the neighboring countries. The locals here grow the oldest type, the lowland rice or paddy rice, which is specifically grown in swampy areas. It requires water-soaked fertile clay, loam soils for better yields. Farmers here still need to be trained to acquire knowledge and skills to engage into new modern farming methods to overcome the dangers associated with poor yields, scorpions, pests and disease in order to boost their production.
Naye ebizibu bye tusanga bya engeri okugugyamu omuddo kyekizibu ekiriwo. Tuba tutandika okulima omuceere tusooka na kusaawa ne tulima ne tusiga beedi ne tulyoka tusimba paka wetukola ki wetukungula.
A month after flowing, the yellow, like rice, is ready for harvest. A farmer will still suffer with the sickle, a hand tool used to harvest the crop.
Omuceere oguba gukuze ne gwengera tukwata akaso kano ne tugusala ne tugusalira wansi kana akaso ne tukungula ne tujjayo ne tuteeka ne tugusoloza ne tugukuba ne gufulumayo.
After piling heaps and heaps of harvested rice, the men will now seek for support from their wives to thresh the crop by manually beating to remove the seeds before it is transported for sun drying and later processed at the poorly maintained processing units.
Ekiremesa omuceere gwa Uganda obutaba na mutindo gwesiimisa omuceere ebyuma byetulinayo bikaire tibyawula mabaale tibyawula ncenga ebisubi byona byona bijira muceere ogwo. Omuceere gwamala gwaba nti gwatika encenga gira muceere obukyafu ebiki omuceere gwaba nga tuziza mutindo gwa muceere gwanubise era twaba nti omuguzi agugula alowooza butayira olw'amabaale agali mu muceere. Abalimi bazira byakwanika ku muceere nga amatundubaali bagazira muceere baanika wansi kyaba nti kigwisisa omutindo ogwagana ebisembatya obw'omuceere. Abali tibayira abagugula abalimi baba nti bono obukyafu bayinabo bazira kyakwanika ku muceere ge baanika omuceere bayanika mu mabaale mu bisubi kyaba nga kini ku kikimu kye kiri kuyamba ekyuma okukyafugaza ino okumena ino bisubi. Kale omuceere ogwagana Uganda ebizibu ebiguli ku nebyo byuma balimi gazira kuba nti galiwo omutindo gw'okwanika omuceere mu ngeri ennungi nibwoyanika era ekyuma kyonoona okusinza aye nga ekireeta ekyo tukaali kufuna ngeri kwetaba ba byuma basomesebwe batufunira ebyuma eby'omutindo tusobola okufuna emmere esobola okuba nti ejja ni kuluya. Ebyuma ebalina byo tibayidde magezi gabe basale twena abasuubuze tutunda omuceere oguli ku mulembe n'obuzibu bwe tunabyo okulumya byawano.
With the government's initiatives to improve the growing rice varieties and modern processing units, post-harvest handling and packaging of rice before market must be well thought to retain Uganda's brand. Another important aspect is to strengthen the farmers' potential to unite through cooperatives, to speak a common language, solve their farm problems in order to be able to produce enough to sustain the ever-increasing market demands. Since the World Food Day calls for global solidarity to help the world's population, and more especially the vulnerable poor, to become resilient and withstand the ever-changing technologies, Government and relevant stakeholders must manage crisis and strengthen food market system to pave way for grassroots farmers to reap from their sweat. This will also uplift agricultural productivity, improve growth of non-farm employment, and relatively cater for the high population growth rates in the country, while a farmer in return sits with a smile, ready to support their families.